Okay, it is about 7:07 p.m. Tuesday, November the 23rd, and welcome to week number 3 of Drugs and Crime. I'm Professor Richard Wright, and I want to start off by reminding everybody that after we complete this week, all assignments that have not been submitted for weeks 1 to 3 will not be accepted starting in week 4, which actually starts Monday. Um, starts Monday. So, and then if you do turn them in and you don't have any extenuating circumstances as to why they're late, you're going to lose a whole bunch of points there anyway. Okay. So I am going to go ahead and get started. Share my screen. This time I remember. Okay, you can now see the screen, and I go to messages. Well, I'll skip the messages and go straight to the calendar, reminding you that the reason why I go to the calendar is because I want everybody to be aware of where to find the due dates if they can't find them in the module, which they're all over the module. But we're right here, the 23rd. Initial post due tonight, your live lecture. Reply post due on Saturday. Sunday, your written assignment, your quiz, and your key phrase is due. So be aware of that. And then you should be aware of this, that December rather is just around the corner. The course ends on the 17th. I always do this every week. And the reason why I do this is because I remind people the course does not end on the 18th or the 19th, the 17th. Therefore, if an assignment is turned in at 12 o'clock a.m., it goes to the 18th. And I don't care how good it is, it's not going to be graded. So what I remind people is that for the last day, don't wait till the last second to get things in. And very, very, very important, because unless you've gone through the appropriate steps for me to extend it, and there's only one way that I can extend it, and I'm not going to tell you what that is, but we discussed that during week 1. It's also found in the syllabus, which I will go back to one more time tonight. But the 17th is the last day of class. That is it. Then we're off for Christmas after that. Okay, so be aware. It's kind of tough for people to be falling behind in these courses because of the fact that it goes so fast. So before I go to the announcement, someone wanted to know how to find my phone number. You go to Course Tools. You go to Syllabus. And there it is. That's the phone number. And remember, I remind my students, emailing me is probably not the best way if you have a serious issue, because they get lost. Trust me, this new system that we have of messaging, course messages doesn't work very well. And there are times when I don't get the message, and you might have even responded, but it for some reason it doesn't show, and will have a delay. But if you text me or call me, I'll get it right away. And that's the best way to do it. Don't be afraid to talk to me, and don't be afraid what hour it is. You call me and I will respond. Sometimes not right that time, but I will get it very soon and respond back to you. Very important. But this is the phone number right here. Okay, so that's one place you would find it. The other place you would find it would be if you went down to the course chat and you saw where I provided information to you. You see it down here as well. But that's how you reach me. Very, very, very important for you to be able to do that. All right. So let's go back to the announcements. Week 3 announcement. Policy and social trends, mental health, and criminal behavior will be discussed. Read chapters 3 and 4 of the textbook. And then I do provide you with the PowerPoints so that they can help you. They actually are a outline of the course, of the chapters, and they're very good for helping you. And I encourage students to use them. I don't lecture on them because I do in a way, but I don't talk about them specifically. But they're very good tools to help you. And then follow these articles that are in here, and then deal with mental health and risk factors for substance abuse and addiction, enforcement policies impact on drugs and crime, influence of social trends on drug-related policy, and then the knowledge check for you. The discussion assignment, social policies and trends. And that's due tonight, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard for initial post, and again Saturday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Finally, complete the written assignment, connection between drugs, mental health, and crime, and then the quiz rather. Okay, due this Sunday. Remember my motto: finish strong, and then my direct model: adversity is a springboard to success, which is actually an announcement in there too, that I had shared, that students can take time to listen to it. It's not a grade, but I do recommend it because it gives you some ideas about why I am the way that I am when it comes to students. Okay. Now, as we look at Module 3, Policy and Social Trends, Mental Health and Criminal Behavior. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about first the assignments, and then we're going to get down to the topics, these three right here. Okay. So let's get going here. And let's first look at the assignment. I encourage people again. Dave's scenario is always included in every assignment that you do. And you have actually from here 2 more to do, because week 6, I don't think there is one. I think I'm right. Let me double check, but I think I'm right. Week 6. Oh, there is. I'm sorry. I forgot they did this different. So you're gonna have the assignment all the weeks. Okay. You're not gonna have the quiz, you'll have the final exam. So anyway, so let's look at the assignment, connection between drugs and mental health. And again, we're gonna talk about that in detail. So for this assignment, please pay attention to not only what the module says, but pay attention to the first column of the rubric and what I'm about to talk to you about. So basically, there is a connection between mental health and self-medication. We'll talk about that. Identify how this connection impacted Dave. Summarize the risk factors for criminal behavior due to substance abuse and mental illness. We'll talk about that. Identify Dave's risk factors. Explain the relationship between substance abuse and criminal behavior. I will be talking about that. It says provide at least one credible source. I repeat again what I always say. The more credible sources, the better your paper is going to be, because credible sources, which are citations, not references, in the body of the paper. But when it says credible source as an APA formatted reference, make sure that you have citations and references. They don't put this very clear in here. But if you see the word APA, you should know what that consists of already. And that's citations in the body and references in the end. Reference page. Correct spelling, grammar. I run your papers through Grammarly and punctuation. 2 to 3 pages. 2 to 3 pages. Not 1 1/2. 2 to 3 pages. Not 1 3/4. 2 to 3 pages. Double space. Double space. Romans, I think it's 10 or 12, but you know which one it is. I think 7 is 12, I believe it is. That's what we're in now. In a Word document, not a PDF, not a PowerPoint. Okay? Very important. Very important. You have it unlimited times to do it. I give students unlimited time to do their assignments before the due date. Now, well, how do I know I've done before the due date? Because you haven't graded it. You can grade yourself first. How do you do that? I'm going to show you in a minute. So let's turn to the rubric. The rubric is your beginning and end to good grades. And mastery. A student said that I graded too hard because I expect everybody to work up to mastery. If I could talk to that student, that was in a survey. If I could talk to that student, I would ask that student, would you repeat out loud and think about what you're saying? It would be a disservice to my students to teach from any level less than mastery, because the key is for you to be able to be successful in your professions. I guess sometimes some people say that's old-fashioned. I say that's okay. I'm old, but that's the way that I teach, and that's the style that I teach. I believe in A-B students, not C, D, or F students. And I can tell you this, I have never seen a student who followed this column get anything less than a B. Maybe a B minus or something. But the point of the matter is the letter is a B and not a C or below. So I'm dogmatic about that. It's very important. All right. But I'm also teaching you how to follow directions and instructions very carefully before you do something. So I want to make sure that, every week I spend time on it. And how come I do? Because when I grade papers and I see them, I shake my head and I says, you didn't get the message. It is too important. You're spending a lot of money, guys, for a good education. I knew, because I did that. Spent a lot of money. So let's get clear what happens here. Dave is important because he's the individual that's utilized in this week's assignment for every section. Every section. And it's very important for you to utilize that information. Don't copy and paste, just take the information. So let's talk about mental health and self-medication. I need you to provide me an exemplary description of the connection between mental health and self-medication phenomenon, and thorough details on how this connection impacted Dave. How do you give me thorough details? Citations in the body to support your statements. I have students that have written things in their papers that this is based on my own personal experiences. Don't do that. Don't do that. This is an educational environment, and we stress research. I am a professional. I could write about myself, but I would still go get some sources to support the ideas that I want to get across to deal with the issues in the paper. Mental health and self-medication. Okay. The risk factors. Exemplary summary of the risk factors due to mental illness. So you got to connect mental illness as well. Again, I'm going to talk about that in just a few. Substance abuse and criminal behavior. Same thing you got to do. So you'll note that Dave is critical in this week's assignment, as he is in every week. Credible sources. So credible sources can affect this. This is a reminder to put it in there. But the key thing is it should be reflected throughout your paper. No credible sources, put you over here. Incomplete or incorrect, put you over here. Same thing. Then you'll have a little over half the points, and that's failing. Usually students end up with 55. That's the exact number that the system gives when I go through it, and no credible sources. Professional 3-page paper at the max. You can go beyond that, but 2 pages is what gets you in the door. 2 complete pages. Because if you have 1.5 pages, you're going to end up over here, because it says it did not meet the requirements. You got to meet the requirements. Very, very, very important. That is so, and you get a good portion of your grade on your written assignments. And it's very important, because when you go into college, reading and writing is critical. That's why communication is a skill and a transferable skills, written and oral communication. Very, very, very important. But following the instructions are critical. Critical. Any questions about the written assignment? No questions? You can type in the chat box, yes or no. Any questions? Are you there? Okay. The quiz is already posted. Okay, let me look under it and see, because it should automatically be. I will look. I don't post them, but when I first set them up, I set them all up to be posted. But do you have any questions about the written assignment? And I'll check that. Any questions about the written assignment? I already know. I already know. You can call and we can talk about that. But I give I give the information in every grade why, and that's why I take the time to do what I'm doing right here with every assignment. I do that every week. So yeah, okay. Well, if it's APA, if you see it's APA, it tells you that you must have citations in the body. When you see the words APA, you know what APA is, or APA requires citations in the body and references at the end. Always, APA is a magical phrase, and we provide a lot of resources as I do on the course homepage about how APA must be done. Some students to provide just references. Some students don't provide any citations, but they got to be properly done. That's part of the whole process of credible sources. Very, very important. Okay, very, very important. APA, we say it APA, and if you know what APA is from the beginning, then always, always. I have students that ask me every week, do I need to put citations in this paper? And I said, if it says APA, there's your answer right there. All right. I'm not trying to be complicated. I'm just trying to get my students to correctness because it's going to transfer over. I could dig you up some students that were former students of mine 3 or 4 years ago. They come back and they said, I was mad at Professor Wright. A couple of them told me. They said, but when they got out there and they started seeing why I told them that, they said, I appreciated it. So, all right. So we're good there. But if you still need to talk, just, you got the way to reach me. I'm available. All right. Now, let me go back and look at this thing here. Okay. I want to look and see what's going on here with, let me move that out the way because the quiz should be up. Every week's quiz should be up. Okay, let's see what it says. Oh, it says hidden from students. Okay, that's because I have to hit this. Now it's visible. Okay, so that's why it's not there. Is it there? You could be able to see it now. Yeah, but that was my error there, and I'm glad you brought it to my attention. And it's early in the week, so that's the good part. Just while we're on this, let me double check so we can go through and you can see in live how I do it. Okay, week 4, just so we get there. It says visible to students. As long as it says that, and I see that. Week 5, it'll say visible to students. Okay, and then finally week 6, which is not a quiz, but it should say final exam, and it says visible to students. So everything else automatically is visible. But there's a little trick that we all have to do. Thank you for letting me know that about week number 3. I really greatly appreciate that. Um, that's why it's good when I tell students, you come to the lectures, you bring some information that will benefit not just you, but a whole bunch of other people as well. I thought that that was checked, but now it's good. All right. Discussion posts, which are due Tuesday nights tonight. Determine whether enforcement, war on drugs, or treatment and rehabilitation is the best approach. Enforcement, war on drugs, treatment, or rehabilitation is the best approach. And there's a little piece that you can read to complete this. So select either enforcement or treatment or rehabilitation. If you selected enforcement, explain why we need to continue enforcement, or the war on drugs. That's where enforcement comes in. If you selected treatment, why we need to focus on treatment and rehabilitation. Treatment goes with rehabilitation. And defend your selection, describe the pros and cons, and then reply to another peer by Saturday. And that's the discussion assignment. Okay. Okay, so now let's get into, well, the next half an hour or so, let's get into dealing with these issues here. Let me say this to you right up front. We have a whole lot of problems in this country and in the criminal field that is caused by a combination or one or the other. Drugs and alcohol together, I put that, and mental health. Those are the duo that can lead to shortening your life and could lead to crimes that are committed. For example, let me give you an example. I don't know if you listen to the news a lot. I do. I pay attention. That in the past year, we reached a optimal number. I've forgotten. I think it was 100,000 this year that we've lost to opioid addiction. I think it's that. But we have never done that before. So rather than going this way, we're going that way. And that's counterproductive. It's like my clock. You remember my clock, 6 to 12? Do you remember that? Do you remember the clock? Yeah. People are going past 6 if they get to 6 and coming around to 9 and then back to 12. And it's real bad. Or they're just staying on 12. Well, that's why I said that's up. If you go to 6, you're going down. And that's where I want you to stay. And it's very, very, very important. And so it's a very serious problem. Then the mental health issue. Most recently, we heard about just yesterday or day before, I think it's Waukesha, Wisconsin, at a holiday parade. You heard about that? Did you hear about that? What happened at that parade where a person drove a car and killed? Oh, okay. I got a friend of mine that just told me today that she's going to visit her family there. But here's my point. I knew when I heard that, I said something was wrong. When they get to it, they're going to find out there was some mental issues, and there were. And that person should not have even been driving. But mental health can be disastrous to human life, not just to the person, but to others. And so we deal with the issue of those Waukesha situations happening, where we have incidents all over the country. It's almost an everyday affair across the country that things are happening because of mental illness. There's something wrong there. You got two young people who were dating each other, and the guy killed the girl, then came back, and then he later on disappeared and killed himself, and they found both bodies. You know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to mention names, but you know who I'm talking about. It's very well known. So anyway, this is a mental illness issue. And so we have to be aware that they're happening all around us, right in our um, communities, not just in urban areas, but in suburban areas. So let's look at what they say here. There has been a definite connection between mental illness, mental health, illness, and the use of addictive substances. So what has happened is that when you use the drugs and you have a mental health issue, it increases it, and and as a result, you begin to use things like cocaine and starting to get high as opposed to just smoking a cigarette. Look what it says here. In America, of all recorded mental health patients, listen to this, 38% use alcohol, which is a mind-altering thing, cocaine, which is dangerous. I talked about this before. I lost a sister with crack cocaine, and 40% smoke cigarettes. Now, the point of the matter is that when you deal with opioids, methamphetamines, marijuana, used by those people who have mental health issues, it sends it through the roof. Their actions, they do things that it doesn't make sense, like driving in a crowd like that. And notice what it shows you here. It says, look, we talk about comorbidity. We start talking about comorbidity. Look at what the chart says here, right here. It says 2 or more disorders occurring in the person. So you have mental disorders and substance abuse. You know, the dynamic duo that results in individuals committing crime. I say this all the time, that it's called drugs and crime because of the fact that drugs contribute to crime. But it could be called drugs, mental health, and crime because, but again, like I said again, it's bad enough people use drugs and they'll start out with even innocent painkillers. You're gonna see that that's how people graduate to opioids and using methamphetamines and all of those, because they might go to a doctor and they might have some pain. I have right now suffering from pain in my back, but my doctor knows how I feel about painkillers, and I am very careful about that because I have worked with athletes as an attorney, and they have told me about how those painkillers resulted in depression and suicide. Dave Duerson used to play for the Bears, was a neighbor of mine, and he took his life. And I can't think of the young man's name. Is Hernandez? I'm drawing a blank on it, but he was a football player. I don't know if he played for the Panthers or whoever he played for. But there are athletes all the time. There are people from every walks of life. Do you know that there are doctors and nurses and lawyers and law enforcement people? You know, we're finding more and more and more because of the fact that but what they see, they get something to mask what they see. And you understand what I'm saying. So the key thing is that Drugs and mental disorder are definitely deadly. And there's a lot of statistics here. But look at what I was talking about a few minutes ago. The stress and and I'm reading this, the stress and life problems experienced by a person in any form of mental illness can create an unbearable situation and a feeling of hopelessness and emotional pain. Without treatment, one is left with trying to cope by whatever means. And you know what that turns out to be? Opioid, methamphetamine, and other items, street drugs, and things when they can't get the medication that's needed. You're again, as we get further into the weeks, you're going to see this. But um, self-medication, as it says, gives us a warning that it does little to eliminate mental health issues. To the contrary, coming down from drug-induced feelings can deepen the mental health problems like paranoia, delusional, depression, not to mention when people are high on drugs, poor decision making, and all of that. So these are things that we all need to be conscious of as criminal justice professionals, that we're going to be dealing with people. And we ourselves have to be careful that we don't find ourselves in this situation. I've had a few students who have been recovering from those kinds of things. And it was a very simple thing that got them spiraling down the road. We're going to go through some videos coming up in the weeks to come dealing with chasing crack and chasing heroin and those kind of things. But look at there are many things that contribute to drug addiction: the psychological, the biological. Um, it it just reaches a point where it could be a minor thing, but then it grows. Look at the psychological self-esteem issue, PST, PTS, post-traumatic stress disorders. I have a lot of military people that I know that went through that, family and friends. They went away and never came back the same. The environment that people allow themselves in, it says life events. Boy, do I know about life events that could cause a person to go off into that. If you listen to my story, Adversity is a Springboard to Success, you will understand why it's people don't believe it when I tell them I'm 71 and I never used drugs. I tasted alcohol, but I didn't drink it. I didn't smoke. I didn't do any of those things. And if they see what I live through on a daily basis coming up, is nothing but the grace of God that kept me. I didn't know that then. I do now. But the point of the matter is that my environment, man, was so conducive to uh, hopelessness and being lost. I'm talking to some students in class when I give these lectures about themselves. I'm talking about people in my family, people in your family, neighbors and friends, co-workers. I'm talking about this. But we have to recognize what the things are that cause this and what can we do. Young people are being taken away from us at an early age. Look at what happened at the that Scott um, program that they had down there, you know, that musical, Travis Scott down in Houston. I already knew, as soon as I heard it, I said, oh my God, it's something more than them just rushing to get close to Travis Scott. It had to be some other things. And sure enough, it came out. Even so much that if you remember, and I talked about this a few weeks back, that one of the police officers was stabbed in the neck by needles, by a needle. And they had to give him Narcan to keep him from dying from an overdose, those kind of things. And so anyway, we began to pay attention to the risk factors that that we face, starting with the chaotic home environment, ineffective parenting, academic failure, low academic aspirations. That's why I talk about the opposite with my students. I want to turn stuff around. Um, Parental substance abuse or mental illness. I represented people as an attorney that went to drug court, and then later on their kids, I got them, or grandkids before I retired. But we began to work on this side of the chart, developing strong bonds, work on academic success, uh, dealing with social organizations such as school, your community, and church. As you know, I'm a pastor. And so it's not even about believing God, it's about an institution that's there to provide mechanisms to redirect you away from some of these things on the left side. Conventional norms about drugs and things, very important. So I've worked in special ed for 7 years, teaching kids in high school. And I had to deal with kids that were ADHD and some very serious problems. They had to use drugs like Ritalin. You ever heard of Ritalin? Yeah. Ritalin is a substance that suppresses the individual, and that person is like a zombie. Check it out, Ritilin. Read up on it and you'll see what I'm talking about. But for those who were in ADHD, they were under this. I had several kids that would just they were they would just act out. They would just do crazy stuff, having a chair thrown at you by a student. One of my colleagues did, breaking their legs, but it's because the kid was dealing with substance abuse disorders. Many of my juvenile court clients, if it weren't gang members, then they were this. So mental illness, leaving this topic for right now, moving on, is that it is so important for us to recognize that there is a definite connection between mental illness and substance abuse. First of all, the reason why people use it, as I said, is to do an escape. And here are some sources that you can use for that. Abuse or dependence by drug and mental illness. I mean, look at the percentages. The high, serious mental illness. Look where it is. Over here, abuse of alcohol, abuse of drugs, or both. Dependence on alcohol. Look at that left column. Illicit drugs, or both. They always are going to be in the forefront. And look at the small amount that have no mental illness. That's the lower spectrum. But most are mild or moderate mental illness. But the serious mental illness, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. So now let's look at the enforcement policies impact on drugs and crime. And it shows you how we have cracked down on it with the law and with increased punishment. Prohibition in this is when alcohol was able to be the 21st Amendment ratified, that you couldn't sell any alcohol. And going back, and you'll see what I'm talking about, to 1914, cocaine became legal in 1914. Did you not know, or maybe you do know, that Coca-Cola, and one of the ingredients that originally was in Coca-Cola was cocaine? Did you know that? Well, it's true. Yeah, it was true. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Trust me. And then the law, uh, they made them remove that. But yes, it was there. Yeah, that's why Coca-Cola was strong. You know, um, cocaine became Coke. Marijuana was made illegal in 1937. Look at what happened. Isn't that interesting? Cocaine became legal in 14. Marijuana, that's where our troubles started with things like that. In the 60s, the use of marijuana uh, dealt with people who were musicians. I had friends who were my being 71, I remember the Purple Haze, and I remember people, Mary Jane, which was a song that was done by Rick James, was about marijuana. There were songs they were singing. There was a play called Hair that was all about um, the drugs, and some of my flower children, friends of mine, colleagues in high school, some didn't make it out. LSD, dealing with mind expanding drugs in the 60s. Then in the 70s, marijuana was made illegal again in 1970, where it became a Schedule One along with heroin. But you already know where that's heading right now because it's going the other way. And so in the 80s, the war on drugs. Let me tell you something. They created it. I just told you how. It was created. And so now we're going to start to crack down on sick people. That's really what it was, by giving increased sentences to individuals who were utilizing drugs. Or we discovered that many who were committing crimes, they had a drug problem, good people, or a mental health problem, or another abuse problem. But primarily it was mental health and drugs. And we came up with these drug courts. I used to go to court and represent people, and they had to go to programs. It wasn't no, I mean, we had, yeah, dealing with the Fourth Amendment, search and seizure, and all that stuff. But the big issue that we had is that that individual seriously had a problem, committed crimes. I had a young man I represented. He was a burglar. But the reason why he was committing burglaries is because he was breaking into houses to get stuff that he could sell for his drug habit. And then he ended up killing himself because he was on a case that I represented him. I told his parents, do not get him out on bail. Usually I don't say that, but I knew how bad he was. And they did went against what I said. And it was 2 or 3 days later that he was killed trying to commit a burglary and run away from the police. He didn't get shot. He got hit by cars running across the expressway. Then we came on with crack. I have a lot of experience dealing with that as a police officer, as I've shared as a investigator, as well as the village attorney in a town called Ford Heights. Excuse me, if you Google it, you'll see what I'm talking about. It used to be called East Chicago Heights. It was called the crack cocaine capital of the South Suburbs. I, there are many houses in the area that now are gone because they were turned into houses where crack cocaine was made or cooked up. So what happens is that um, the laws start giving more time to individuals who were committing crimes and were and had drugs on them, and as a result, the jails and prisons and other places started filling up, and then we had revolving door where you arrest somebody, you give them you can give them as many years as you want, and then they come out and they haven't been helped. In fact, did you not know, or you may know, that jail and prison is a place where people learn how to commit crimes because of individuals who are there who are either lifers or committed serious offenses and use those people, even individuals who are wrongfully convicted. That's why people who are wrongfully convicted run into problems. We run out of time, but I got to keep moving. But the point of the matter is that we are at a point where the law, the war on drugs, is a complete bust. Complete bust. Complete bust. And you're going to discover as we go along in the weeks to come that we're moving, we still have it. We're still giving time for it, especially for individuals who have large quantities. But there are too many pawns, people who are hooked on it, that sell drugs, and they're not even having large quantities, and they end up going to jail. So we can go down. There's some serious issues as far as the disparity of enforcement in this country based on race. That's based on the numbers. As it says here, you have fathers and husbands with no employment skills, or few got into the drug business to make a living. I I dealt with that so much from '89 to '93. I mean, tremendous amount. And then it was in '94 that my baby sister OD'd on cocaine. So you see, it's a real problem. But it doesn't matter what class you're from. Laws were passed, President Obama, the fair sentencing, to reduce the number of years. But the key thing that has to take place, no matter what kind of sentencing structure you have, you got to get something to take care of this and approach this as a health issue. It is a health issue. I have many students who are criminal justice who work in the health industry, and they're getting double degrees. I got one I was talking to yesterday about that, because they recognize there's a problem there. So mandatory sentencing, minimum sentence for simple possession of crack cocaine. Think about what I just said a few minutes ago. Things like that. Individuals just crowd the drugs and they get in there. And incidentally, drugs are readily available in jails and prison. Readily available. Influence of social trends. So we're at 8 now, but I'm going to go a few minutes over. So here we get to the point, coming to the conclusion of what I'd like to talk about, is that it's clear that the war on drugs has has not had a deterrent effect. Incapacitation temporarily, retribution or punishment. But then we're going to talk about the two, and the one that I favor most. As they say, once officials found out that the ones I was talking about were not effective to deal with recidivism and to positively effectuate not recidivism, but deter individuals from committing crimes. And I was talking about drug court, and we found ourselves dealing with, throughout the years from '89 to 2017, you look at and you see the different things with local and national courts all across the country. Serious issues that dealt with that, very serious issues. And so my point being is that it just, look at what happened from '89. the height of the national crack epidemic, and shows you the history of how we opened these drug courts and coming all the way down. Let's just speed ahead to establishing. Look what we finally got to. All these years, 2008, there was some dabbling in it. To 1997, there was some areas that dealt with it, but it wasn't a nationwide phenomenon to deal with mental health until after 2017, around that time. So the point of the matter is that we have to understand is that if we don't deal with the cause of the problem, we're going to be going around like in jail, out of jail, in jail, out of jail, or committing crimes, killing themselves or killing others, making our society into a dangerous place to be in our communities and things of that nature. What I like about this course is it gives an opportunity for some common sense stuff to be applied for you to remember that you must be, yeah, the statistics support what's said, but the question is at the end, what do we want to do about this? And as we go further into this course, we'll deal with some solutions that are going to be coming up that law enforcement and corrections are dealing with concerning that. The knowledge check. So you're going to be able to do this on your own. And then you'll find this from your readings and your PowerPoints. Patients with schizophrenia tend to have high rates of, what do you think they have? High rates of what? Which one? A, B, C, or D? Take a shot. That's it. That's it. We talked about that earlier. During the Obama administration, which pact was signed into law? And what was that? We just got through talking about it. Which one was it? Mm-hmm. Fair Sentencing Act. Yeah. But remember, once again, my point to you, and you can go through the rest of this, is that you're learning quickly that law does not deal with the problem. It's like slapping a Band-Aid over something that needs to be surgically dealt with. And that's it. So I hope that what we've talked about kind of like, I know there's a lot of stuff in this in here, but when you read your chapters and it puts some legs on it also, the point of the matter is that what you need to be aware of is that mental health, if there's nothing else you remember from this lecture, is that mental health and drug use are the dynamic destructive mechanisms to our communities and our society, and account for a tremendous portion of crime. That's the key. Okay. Okay, it's 8:06, 6 over. I got started a few minutes late, but so we're in good time here. Any questions? This class pretty much is a course dealing with it's kind of could fit into a person who's getting a degree in psychology or sociology, because you are dealing with that. But remember, we as individuals in criminal justice have to not be so, as my background is law, but I also learned something in terms of working in the field from a police officer, from a prosecutor, from a defense attorney primarily, that what caused these people to find themselves in that situation? And then let's come up with solutions to try to help them. I guess my job that I do as pastor contributes a whole lot in terms of trying to work with that. I work with one of my former students. She's a victim of domestic violence, and we shared our story, and I'm going to be on her board. She's out in Massachusetts, but I'll be working with her as an advisor to deal with this, and we're going to continue to work on those issues. But that's the same thing we're going to be doing with drugs, and so we'll be talking about this more in detail. So, how about a key phrase? Any suggestions? Take a shot? Got a lot of them, but there was one that kind of like jumps out to me. That's good. I was going to use that, but how about let's use one of the methods for dealing with them? How about rehabilitation? Does that get to the heart of it? Yep. But don't give me rehab. Give me rehabilitation as your key phrase and word. Because that gets the whole lecture that we did. I could have said, ladies and gentlemen, students, we're going to talk about what you need to do to resolve this issue. Close your book. We're going to take a test. Among those was war on crime, deterrence, or rehabilitation, the one that we really need to work towards to help individuals. And that would be you only get one shot at it, and you get a 0 or you get 100. Rehabilitation is the answer every time. It has to be, and that's what we have. And you're going to discover how law enforcement. We start talking about deflection in a few weeks or so to come, and I'll be dealing with that. All right, I'm going to say good night. I want to wish each and every one of you a happy Thanksgiving. Some of you won't hear this until after Thanksgiving. Um, your grades will be in by Friday. I will not be grading papers on Thursday. I will not be doing any of that. I don't recommend you do that either. Enjoy the time with your family and your friends, and take a break off on Thursday. Cry a little bit if you're cheering for the Bears. That's my team. If you're in Michigan for the Lions, I was talking to someone that says, I feel like Dorothy, excuse me. Dorothy said, lions and tigers and bears. Oh my, yeah, well, it's lions and bears. Okay. All right. So, again, continue to stay safe. Take care of yourself. Take care of your physical health, your mental health. And like I said, if you need me, um, probably, I mean, my wife would kill me if I grabbed the phone to answer questions on Thanksgiving. But there are some people who find themselves in that situation, but try to stay away from that kind of stuff. You can call me all day Friday. You have plenty of time before your assignments are due. So see you next week. Um, oh, you too. Thank you so much. And if you're a vegan, that's okay, because that means that's more meat for me. I'm going to have the whole spread, turkey, ham, and my all important beef, my steak. Gotta have them. So take care. See ya.